Hi, I'm Josh Ibarra, and this is my Module 15 case study about Truman Elementary um, for AEP 858 data analysis. Um, what do I know? Truman Elementary is a K through 8 building. It's the largest um, school in the district. There are some other elementary schools that are K through 4, and then there is a middle school that is 5 through 8, and then one high school. 15% of the students, and that's out of 700 students, are free and reduced, are qualified for free and reduced lunch. 5% are ELL. Most of these are Spanish speaking. Um, Principal is in his second year at Truman. He was hired from within the district, but not the building, and is still working on these relationships. Um, PTO wants principal to address the issues in reading test scores and inability to read in the elementary school. So they are dealing with a situation where they're noticing their reading scores are lower than their math scores. Um, Principal and reading supervisor evaluate the program. Principal does this initially, and then he brings in the supervisor to do it, to have somebody kind of outside, give an outside perspective, I guess. Reading supervisor suggests new reading curriculum and changes in instructional strategies. Notifies school of grant money for instruction changes. So, long story short, PTO sends a letter. Principal gets this letter, and it is about these test scores and reading not being taught properly at the school. PTO is very concerned about this. They feel like the curriculum that is being used isn't proper. It's not working and doing its job. So now he has to evaluate the situation, brings in the supervisor. She evaluates the situation. She makes her recommendations, and they go from there. School starts implementing changes right away and is hopeful that some of their professional development can show some results. So as we go, I'll kind of give my perspective on the whole thing and how how I would deal with this whole situation. Okay, what do I need to know? I would like to know why only the PTO is seeing the gaps in the reading level. After kind of typing this out and now thinking about it, obviously I think the principal saw the gaps too. That's why he went in and was observing, and I think that's the right move to make. I think he noticed the gaps through either the data that was presented or whatever, and went in, observed. Then this letter came about, so he went ahead and sent the reading supervisor in. That way he could see what she said. If they were both kind of on the same page, then he had an idea as to where they needed to go next. If they weren't, then they would have to reevaluate. I think he did the right thing here. Um, why haven't they made effort to change this? I think he was probably waiting to see, and this is how I would be as well, waiting to kind of see if this is what the situation was. It doesn't really say, but maybe he had planned on bringing the reading supervisor in anyway before the PTO letter. The PTO letter was just kind of a something that happened. He might have went in, observed, saw what he saw, put together his idea and his plan and what he wanted to implement, and then was going to bring in the reading supervisor once again to see what they had to say. And I think this is very, very smart. You look at your data, you know that there's something missing here. So the next plan of action is to go in and evaluate this whole situation. And I think he did that. And I really honestly believe that if it was me, I would do the same thing. I would look at the data. I might have, and I'm sure this has happened, it doesn't really say it here, but I'm sure during some in-service or whatever, they probably went over this data. Then he went in, he evaluated after looking at the data, and then brought in the supervisor to look at it as well. I would also want to know what the school board had to say about the matter. So at the next school board meeting, I would, address this, especially now that the PTO has addressed it. And what can we do? Or this is what we see. These are the issues that have been brought up. This is what I noticed when I went and observed. This is what our reading supervisor noticed when she went in and observed. And here is our plan going forward. How's the principal being has the principal been going through the KEEP process, which is evaluation for those of you not in the state of Kansas. Um, and how has the evaluation process been? I don't think this is a teacher thing, like 100% a teacher thing. I think this is partly the curriculum. It sounds like an antiquated type of curriculum that needs to be updated. There's not really a whole lot of differentiation. There's a lot of large group instead of small group. There's not a lot of research base, which I know they want to push, whether it be PBL or whatever, to try and get these kids to, with the research based or the project based stuff, you can allow kids to work kind of at their own pace in their own styling as much as possible. So using that, would really help. But as far as the evaluations, I'm sure this principal was doing evaluations. I think that my evaluations, I might have gotten on, it might have helped me see what the situation was. But once again, I don't think this is 100% a teacher fault thing. I think a lot of it has to do with the antiquated curriculum. What kind of attitude do the teachers have when they get word from the principal? So, once this all comes through, what is their attitude going to be? Whether it's me coming to them after an evaluation, whether it's me or whether it's them coming at me after they see the data. Are they going to come and make up excuses? Are they going to come and say, well, we don't know what to do. This is the curriculum. And then we need to go from there. We have the data sets. We need to look at that and utilize that and figure out if there's any other ways to find more data that'll help us moving forward. And how do we make sure this doesn't happen in another subject area? The math is better, but is it good? You know what I mean? So if the math scores are better than reading, that's fine, but where does it rank in comparison to the rest of the state? And same with science scores, same with social studies scores, all along the line. You want to make sure that, okay, yes, we're going to really bump up our reading here because that's where we've noticed the biggest gap so far, but we want to make sure we're not leaving anything else in the dust. Plan of action. Okay, as soon as I got the letter, I would meet with the teachers, whether that was in the morning before school or at the next. Well, actually, it would probably be as soon as I got that letter, I would go in, talk to the superintendent. I would talk with and then I'd want to talk to my teachers. So I would bring teachers in maybe before school or after school someday, just a quick meeting, just to let them know what was going on. Let them know that this has been raised at a PTO meeting and that I'm not here to blame anybody for this, that this is just a matter of this is what's going on. Then if I hadn't already done my evaluations of the classroom and the curriculum, and I would let them know that I was going to be coming in to evaluate and that they don't need to be freaked out by this. I want to see where we're at. I would want to talk to them about this. Have you noticed these things? Obviously, if I was the administrator, we would have been looking at the data and we would have noticed this, and hopefully we would have gotten onto this before anything came out from the PTO. But in this situation, apparently they didn't notice this or didn't get onto this ahead of time. So why? Why didn't we do this? Okay, have you guys noticed this? What can we be doing? Is the curriculum, like I've been saying, antiquated? What are some other curriculums we can be looking at? Reach out to another professional, which that would be your supervisor. And that's another thing I'd say. I'm going to be coming in to supervise and kind of evaluate this curriculum. I'm going to send in our reading supervisor to do the same. That way we have kind of two different areas or two different viewpoints. Not to mention I want to take my teachers' viewpoints and opinions as well. Take the advice, just like I said, of the supervisor, and look into new curriculum. And it talks about grants, and it talks that there's 200,000 or 10 to 15 grants to be given out for 200 to 250,000, no more than 350,000, and then there'd be a few that would be 500,000, and these are on a 2-year basis. So we'd have to look at, based on what our situation was, what we qualified for. Because of the qualifications, do we qualify for, are we going to get one of those lower ones, or do we qualify for one of the bigger grants? If we qualify for one of the bigger grants, do we need all that money? Is this something that we can be spending to really fix the situation? whether it's getting new textbooks, new online resources, workbooks, whatever the case. But anyway, we want to make sure that we figure this out. Myself working with the professional, which would be our supervisor, working with the teachers, working with the superintendent, talking to the school board, talking with the PTO even maybe, and saying, look, this is where we're at, and this is kind of the curriculum that we're going to be looking at, and the teachers agree that we need to make a change, and we're going to make this change. The grant, like I said, you need to start getting that literature as soon as possible and figuring out what you need to do to qualify for this, because obviously money can be an issue when you're in a district that has that many schools, or just in a district in general. But getting that money, it may be a long process. So you've got to start, once again, figure out what you're going to qualify for. Where are we at as far as free and reduced lunches? Where are we at in terms of needs? And look at the requirements for those grants and then go from there. I'd make sure all parties involved knew that this wasn't anyone's fault. So like I said before, this isn't a blame game. This is what's happening. Okay, teachers need to understand that that it's not just their fault. This is a curriculum situation. Maybe this has been something that, okay, we've just kind of put off, or past principals or whoever have put off, and because of money issues. Well, these grants are available. Let's utilize those grants and get it taken care of. But it's not necessarily just the teacher's fault. Now, we might have to go in and say, now listen, we've got to do a better job with what we've got. I understand it's antiquated. I understand it's not the best curriculum, but we've got to do a better job of getting these kids' reading scores higher, and figuring out ways to make modifications until we can get the new curriculum. My plan of action promotes success of all students because it helps provide students with proper content and curriculum while supporting the teachers in the way they teach. So once again, don't put any blame on anybody. Figure out where you can get that new curriculum, how you can get that new curriculum. Work with the teachers, work with the supervisor. Figure out what is going to be the best curriculum. Look for that research-based stuff to where they can all kind of individualize their own plan of study. Anyway, not always do the test scores show the impact of a teacher. So I want them to know that. Test scores can be that the kids just don't care. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here, but sometimes the kids don't want to take tests. They're perfectly capable of scoring higher. They just don't want to take a test, so they don't take them seriously. So it doesn't necessarily reflect what the teacher is doing 100% of the time. I want them to know that it's not just their fault or their fault at all, but with modern instructional strategies that are research-based, we as a building should be able to provide a better educational experience than we are currently providing. Debrief the problem by reflecting on what you were thinking, feeling, and valuing. So keep the students and staff safe. That's always the first thing. Don't make any irrational decisions. I'm not going to go in and start firing teachers just because reading scores are a little lower because the PTO pointed this out. That's not what I should be doing. I should be evaluating to see what the situation is. Do my best to keep the school from shaking up. That's not going to help anything, so create more chaos. Take time to think on the situation. Just because the PTO claims that reading has gaps doesn't mean it's the end of the world, and it's my job to use good judgment. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to be flying through this. How do you, the education leader at the building level, apply knowledge that promotes the success of every student by acting with integrity, by not overreacting? It's my job to keep cool and make sure that we don't overreact and just start firing people or screaming at people when it may not be their fault 100%. It's as much my fault if the curriculum is bad, so I need to get that taken care of. How did you, the education leader at the building level, apply knowledge that promotes the success of every student by acting with fairness? Acting with fairness by looking at each, going in, evaluating, looking at each teacher, looking at each class, each grade, looking at the curriculum, looking at the student, and then making a decision based on all of that. What do we need to make our students most successful? How do you, the education leader at the building level, apply knowledge that promotes success of every student by acting in an ethical manner? Being fair, not overreacting once again. So Sorry, rushed through this end, but I'm out of time. Thank you.